Hi, we are going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion today. My name is Claire LaBeaux. I'm the Director of Communications at NASEF. We're the North America Scholastic Esports Federation. And I'm here with a fantastic group of people who are all on a mission, as we are, to improve diversity, equity, and inclusion in esports. So let's do a quick round robin of introductions. Go ahead and start.
Sure, I'm Rebecca Dixon, one of the co-founders and CEO of the gameHERS. We are a community media platform and social network for women who game and work in gaming.
And I'm Ryan Johnson, the founder and CEO of Cxmmunity. Our company focuses on increasing minority participation in the esports and video game industry through STEM and STEAM education. So excited to be here this weekend, especially as we have some of our HBCU students participating this weekend as well.
And Jeff White, Executive Director for the National Junior College Athletic Association Esports. I know that's a long title. We're the only exclusively two-year collegiate athletic association. Sixth semester in, we've got about 150 colleges already participating, and I'm also the Vice President of a lot of different areas on the traditional sports side.
Awesome. It's great to be here in this collegiate event and all of us sharing ideas and talking with each other. I think everyone is so excited to be bringing colleges together, and the students are excited. Plus, post-COVID, right? It's just nice to be out in person, seeing people's smiles again. So diversity, equity, inclusion, though, it's a big topic right now. Can one of you describe what that means?
Sure, I think we probably all can a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, from the gameHERS perspective, we started out realizing that women account for about half of gamers, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but approximately half. And we looked at, you know, how gamers are portrayed in the media, the kind of scholarships they're getting, the kind of opportunities they're getting in business in this industry, and felt like there was a little work that we could do. And as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion, first of all, women does fall within that, you know, in that category. And the moment we started talking about women, we realized it's women, femme-identifying gamers, all, you know, marginalized communities, and we just really try to align with organizations like the two that these wonderful gentlemen represent, so that we can all work together.
Yeah. And from the lens of community, D&I is really through the lens of like the HBCU community. Myself, our co-founder, we're both HBCU alum, and just looking at the data, very similar. Like we found that, you know, African American teens are one of the highest populations of gamers on a weekly basis, but one of the smallest percentages of working in the industry full time. So for us, you know, D&I is really bringing a formal structure and a formal process to a community that connects so well with this industry, but doesn't have the processes in place to know how to matriculate through that from not only a competitive standpoint, but also academically. So for us, we focus very heavily on creating, again, competitive and career-oriented programs that allow these students to understand exactly what esports is from the standpoint of business. So from the same type of education we look at the music industry, around artists raising their awareness, becoming their own companies, their own businesses, we're doing the same thing in teaching young minority students about the same economical value and freedom that the gaming industry has to offer.
Right, at NASEF, that's exactly what we do, is we're saying from the time you're in high school, right, and it feels like it's getting younger and younger, high school, then middle school, you should be learning these principles and understanding. Hopefully we're going to get to the place where it's not a big initiative that you have to have, right? That we're all trying to embed these philosophies in what we do from the beginning all the way through your college experience and into career, so that diversity, equity, and inclusion just is reality. But it's going to take some work to get there, right?
Just a little bit, yep.
Yeah, for us, you know, the community college space in terms of higher education is the most diverse space. And so 30% of our students are first generation college students. And so we recognize that we've got a student population where we're making generational changes and generational impact. And on top of that, community colleges play such a powerful role in the local community that by focusing on these educational opportunities for the students and the community, we can make a really big impact. And so what we've really spent a lot of time doing is identifying a lot of special interest groups like the gameHERS to partner with, because it's not for us to take the message to the students. We've identified partners that it's their passion, they know it, they're living it. Those are the groups that we've identified that we want to work with, and we want to create curriculum and run events and allow them to spread their message.
Right, that's perfect. So describe the game, like exactly what it is and how does someone participate in it?
Sure, so we launched 2.5 years ago, and we launched just sort of with the idea that creating a space for a community to come together, create that space would allow women to feel kind of more comfortable gaming, and then that community could kind of act as media, as influencers for everybody else to understand, hey, you know, women game. We were lucky that we launched right at the time the pandemic started, right at, you know, the year that the social justice movement got a lot of momentum and sort of airtime, and I think much deserved. And I think that also just it was needed, and so we experienced a lot of really early momentum. We hosted the gameHERS Awards. Everybody was really excited to honor women in gaming across all sort of parts of it, everything from cosplay to streaming, development, esports, and I think the way those early ways that women gamers could engage with us still exist today. But what's most relevant to talk about now is that we realized really early on, if we're going to make a difference for women in gaming, we really better pay attention to the collegiate space. And we did a lot of sort of grassroots networking, which led us to, you know, these two guys and a lot of other people, NASEF, who's really trying to work on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the space, and we felt like there's room for us to be there too. So we launched a collegiate Discord in March. It is absolutely thriving. We have over 60 colleges actually onboarded, which basically just means their administrators or esports coaches, depending on what they have at that school, come in and talk about how we can support them, what conversations need to be had, and how we can help them make it a better situation for women in gaming. And you know, it's a little bit about the specific esports program, but for women also, sometimes it's the gaming community that surrounds that program in order to it just sort of change the narrative a little bit, again, that women do game and should be in the gaming industry, and there are lots of opportunities for that. So the other piece we focus on a lot is careers. We just hosted our professional career boot camp this past weekend, where we had over 40 women from the industry speaking on panels, everything from monetizing your stream to, you know, negotiating a salary, pivoting a career, and getting into this industry. And not unlike a lot of the other initiatives that we like to align with, like that community's working on, we think that if we can create sort of metrics and pathways to get it from point A to point B, from college to the industry, wherever we can be helpful, we're trying to do that. So
right, absolutely.
Yeah,
that long-term focus, right?
It's
because
true.
College is, when you're in it, it feels like forever some days, but it is a brief time period in your life, and so it's setting up those expectations for beyond.
Yeah, and I mean, what we tell any women who are gaming, certainly in the collegiate space, if they're looking to figure out, like, how can I get involved with the gamers, it's just, you know, join our Discord, download our app, follow us on social, and then kind of get a sense for what makes most sense, because we're trying to plug into gamers in any part of the industry, in any part of the gaming space.
Right, that's awesome. And how about community? Describe what kind of programs you have and how you're working with kids to try to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, so I would say, again, on the career side, mainly is through curriculum. So we have a couple of aftercare and after-school programs that we run in Philadelphia and also Atlanta in partnership with Comcast and Microsoft. So for the month of April, every Saturday from 11 to 4 p.m., we actually would bring in about 15 to 25 students from Metro Atlanta to go through like a gaming boot camp. So like literally lesson 1 is the difference between gaming and esports. And at the end of the 4th week, they're in 3D renderings and understanding how to create like characters that they can then create in these other programs once they go home. So for us, it's really around actually getting in there, talking to students, making sure that they understand some of these core fundamentals. So we're looking to expand those programs. We currently are also getting ready to announce one that's going to be really cool for the city of Atlanta this upcoming summer, which is going to be essentially esports video game summer camp that we'll be doing here in the city. And then also on the other side of that is through our HBCU Esports League. So that's literally exactly as it sounds. We have about 35 HBCUs that currently compete within our league. Actually, we just completed season 2 about 2.5 weeks ago, matter of fact. And it's been awesome because through that platform, the students get to showcase their skills. The brands are getting major visibility from the messaging and their support of this community. And then the HBCUs themselves, now by being on Twitch, are getting new brand recognition and having new faces and new ears hear their names, just as the commentators are calling it out. So we're really excited for season 3, which will start in September, because we'll have the same sponsors involved, Verizon, Discover, and Nike, and we'll have some new additions as well. But the students are really excited because we just finished with about 15 million views from our second season. So it's a huge platform for these students just to kind of like get their names out there, get their institutions. And those are like the 2 main platforms that we have from like our aftercare and weekend programs from the educational standpoint. And then on the competition side, we have a 22-week long season to keep our students engaged.
Right, that's awesome. Do you do something similar at NJCAA?
Yeah, so for us, because our members are 2-year colleges, it's higher education, our focus is on member support. We really focus and strive on being a member-driven association. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we've really focused on identifying key strategic partners who have a mutual interest in the shared mission, shared vision. And so, our director of DEI, Kevin Thomas, will probably get a little upset with me for spilling the beans on this, but he spent basically the last 7 months building a strategic plan for us to roll out to our members. And so ultimately what we're going to focus on is poverty. As we can all agree, poverty touches all races, all genders, all ethnicities, and it's a cause that is easy to support because it really encompasses all of those different areas. And so for us, we focus on building content, training programs, support, and information that can be used by each of these member institutions to then share with their students, their faculty, and the surrounding community.
Yeah, that sounds great. That infrastructure is needed sometimes, right? If you were to give advice to a college, say a new esports program director getting things started, what would you tell them to do to start baking in good DEI policies from the beginning?
You know, it's hard to give that advice sort of overall because it really depends on where the college is. But if they're starting a new program, I think that first of all, the initiatives that we're all just talking about are new and we're just talking about them now. So depending on the college, I think reaching out to any of us would be one very helpful tip because we are creating spaces to kind of talk about just those things. I also think that I would say, encourage the gamers wherever, to seek out, to talk about it, have the discussion, because sometimes it's just, people who had kind of come through the ranks, generally gaming, and they're with their friends, and they just end up on a team. And once the conversation starts, talking to administrators, talking to admissions, and having that discussion, bringing in focus groups, think tanks, it's not easy. But having it be a piece of the conversation from absolutely day one, as opposed to getting a program up and going and then thinking about it, is I think the real way to do it.
Right. Yeah, I know one of the things when I've been out in schools, and one of the leaders in NASEF had said one time, and I thought it was so great, she said, look around the room, see who's in the room right now. Now picture who's in the rest of the school. Go find the people who aren't here and invite them. Yourself, as a student, you can bring about change too. And so she said, look around this room, it's all boys. Are there any girls at this school? Like, just go tell a few, hey, you know what, you'd be welcome here, come and join us. And being invited by your peers sometimes can help build a lot too. I think there are two aspects, right? The ground up and then the administration down.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. What do you think, Ryan? Advice for someone starting a new program?
One thing I always just say is like the titles that you decide to introduce as the main titles, because as we all know, titles have audience, right? And sometimes those audience skews to leading to then have more conversations around D&I. So for us, we're always just like, and I think this is a great example here, I see everything from hardcore PC games to NBA 2K, which gives a more diverse inherently diverse like network just because it reaches a wider audience. The biggest disparity that we found in gaming holistically is console versus PC gaming, and that's where you really have the great divide. And that just comes down, honestly, when we talk about poverty and affordability, and that's where you have a lot of inherent disparity in the industry, but I think a lot of that is very fixable. But that's why we always say, like, depending upon which program or where the school is specifically, right? It's less of a thing within the HBCU community, but we've also been talking to other institutions outside of that space, and they ask that same question. And we always say, if you're looking to have a diverse club, you need to have at a minimum consoles, also PCs, because it gives a comfort level. A lot of times is what kind of causes that friction. So my answer, long-winded, boiled down, is your titles and your consoles. It's very important to look at that when you're starting any program.
Right. That's great.
So I'm really glad you asked this question. This is a conversation that I've had in 2 years, probably 1,000 times. We've built a lot of resources at our association to address this very question. In fact, I was at a convention just last week, the American Association of Community Colleges, and had probably 25 different college presidents come up to me and say, we want to start esports in the fall, but we don't know how to do it. What do we do? And so we've built a cadre of resources, and as I mentioned, we've really focused on identifying key strategic partners. I hate to keep reusing that same phrase, but the recruiting, if DEI recruiting is fundamental to what you do, it's going to work. So I'm going to plug Rebecca and the gameHERS. For us, we're heavily focused on really leveraging our partnership with the gameHERS and their collegiate program. Because Title IX is something that higher ed and primary ed, everyone is focused on Title IX compliance. And so if you can show that you're truly committed and focused on building that inclusive culture, as opposed to just hanging a flyer that says come play some games, I mean, there's a significant difference in that approach. And so for us, it's just creating resources. And again, we really focus on making it as simple as possible. I've been saying we focus on removing all barriers to entry, not only for students, but for faculty and staff. And so, again, focusing on those key strategic partnerships. So if I was talking to a coach or an admin, what I would say is, once you're ready, call us. We'll give you all the information you need. We'll connect all the dots that you need, and we'll get you going.
Yeah. One thing that I love about esports right now is the collaboration that happens among all of our organizations, right? We all want to see these kids thrive.
Yeah.
And so it seems easy to say, pick up the phone and call someone. They actually answer, and they actually will talk to you and try to figure out meaningful work to do together. One thing I don't like is like, hey, nice to meet you, let's collaborate, and then nothing happens. And that is not the esports community. People really want to help each other out.
It's really not, and honestly, I think it's because, Ryan, you were talking about this, and we've all been talking about it a little bit, like the opportunities career-wise that esports can open for kids, I mean, it's unbelievable. So why wouldn't we all collaborate? And the reality is we're all trying to be successful in our own little niche that we're working in, but none of us are gonna, it literally has never not helped me to collaborate with anybody who's aligned with us. It always helps. And if somebody has questioned, since the gameHERS launched, there have been a few other companies that are also focused on women. Great. The more the better. We partner with all of them. That's good for us. They don't do the exact same thing we do, and there's so much room in this space. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, crystal ball, or maybe just your own hopes, where would you love to see esports in the next 5 or 10 years, like collegiate esports?
You want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm really looking forward to more in real, IRL events. I think that's where the socialization of the industry just starts to grow. And then also as media starts getting behind more gaming as well, you'll start seeing esports popping up in non-traditional gaming, I would say, conversations. That really is what leads to, I think, growth of a sport at large. I think one thing also I'm excited about is, at least when I got into the industry, call it 3.5, 4 years ago, there was this notion of e-sport, but we're not a traditional sport. And there's still that notion, right? But I see this formality of pipeline and opportunities like this starting to standardize what I think is going to make the industry really explode. So I'm really excited just to see more events like this come to life, local, regional, and national, and just like be there along for that entire journey.
Yeah. One thing I've seen a lot, and NASEF's been around about 4 years, and in that 4 years, we've seen a big change in what the parents think about it. Because they used to be like, oh no, my kid wants to be a gamer. And now they're starting to see the career opportunities that you're talking about, and we're seeing that change happen. And also in schools and administration saying, like you said, all these college presidents all of a sudden saying, we want to bring it to our school, how do we do that? So I love seeing the shift and embracing it instead of, the fear of it is awesome. And personally, that's what I want to see, is just more acceptance and more growth. Because at the end of the day, it benefits every kid who participates. And
it's the world they're growing up in and that we're all living in.
Yeah.
So it's exciting.
Right. What do you want to see in the future?
Yeah, so I think you said something that was really poignant. I think first and foremost, sort of the mutuality of interest and altruistic approach that we're all in this together. As the industry matures and gets more and more heavily monetized, I hope we don't lose that piece of it. I think that's the first piece. And the second piece, from a competitive perspective, I really want to see teams start to get more, just continue to develop and get more sophisticated with how they run their programs. And I think you really hit upon a key point, this comparison to traditional sports. And I've had conversations with coaches and students many times, and they say, we should be treated just like traditional sports. And my response is, I'm a big Notre Dame football fan. You don't have to worry about Notre Dame showing up to play USC when they're scheduled to play. That game's gonna happen. You still have that in esports. You still have no-shows and forfeits and things of that nature. And so I think the continued sophistication and development of the coaches and the administrators and the players, I think will go a long way in lending a lot of credibility to collegiate esports.
Agreed.
Right. Awesome. I agree. Anything to add?
I think these guys covered it.
I know what could be
in
add to
10
that.
years, I'm excited to see what's going to happen in 6 months, because even with the opening of live events so much more, it's just really exciting. And gaming, quite literally, is at the intersection of everything right now. It's just such a fun time to be in such an industry, which really is, I think, very open to collaborating and trying to be as inclusive as possible. We just have a little ways to go.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, I appreciate being able to talk about this super important topic with all of you, and that I know we're not just all talking about it, we're actually doing something.
Absolutely.
So, great time. Thank you
so much.
All right, thank you.